Welcome, everybody. We've got a big crowd tonight, and we are delighted. This will be a great program. I just wanted to make a few announcements. First of all, we have so many people here this evening that some of you have not yet joined ATA, and please do consider joining us as a member. You can continue to watch these programs for free, but to get all the news about everything we've got going on and to take advantage of our wonderful checklists and to subscribe to our marvelous journal, join us and be a topical collector with us. Topical Time is online now. The latest issue is online at americantopical.org. There's a banner, a rotating banner at the top of the website. Just click on there, and if you're a member, you can read a wonderful issue of Topical Time with lots of features and good things to read. Next time, we have a wonderful program that really we would like you to ask you to help us spread the word about this program. This is on Thursday, December 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Todd Ganser, who is the president of the Greater Boston Philatelic Society, will be speaking about ways to energize your stamp club. If you're looking for ways to modernize your club and make it more accessible and appealing, come and hear Todd's ideas. They will revolutionize the way you operate your stamp club and help you get into the new year with exciting new details. That will end our programs before the holidays, but we'll be back in the winter. So please do watch us come 2024, and we'll have a lineup of programs for you. I wanted to point out a few things that are in Topical Time that you need to know about. We have advertisers that pay ATA to advertise, and that money goes to operate the American Topical Association. That our advertisers are very important to us. I wanted to point out that Mary Martin Postcards, one of our advertisers, has a big show in York, Pennsylvania this Friday and Saturday. If you're a postcard collector, and I think many topical collectors are, and you live near York or like me, even if you don't, it's a wonderful thing to attend. Also, France International, an organization that sells stamps and lots of other interesting philatelic items by theme or topic, has an auction going on right now. As long as you don't bid against me, you may please go on that website and look at all the wonderful things they've got and see what you might like to buy. And now, without further ado, I will introduce Tom Broadhead, second vice president of ATA, this year's American Topical Association Distinguished Topical Philatelist. He's our most frequent presenter at our Zoom series for the last 4 years. And I would say for sure one of the most popular because he draws big crowds such as we have this evening. Tom is very active in the France Colonies organization. He's been editor of the Knoxville Philatelic Society journal for longer probably than he can add. I think more than 15 years. He's actually held every position in that organization. He's a real leader in our hobby, and he comes up with the most interesting topics that he shares with us. So I'm really delighted to introduce one of our most popular speakers, Tom Broadhead.
Thank you, Dawn. And it is a great pleasure to be here talking about one of my most favorite places in the world as a philatelist who collects France. The open air market in Paris is a must visit, and I've been there a few times. And so let's begin. This is It's not so much a travelogue, because it all basically takes place in the same general area in Paris, but it is a time travelogue. So I am going to walk you through the outdoor stamp market in Paris from its origins in 1860 up into the 21st century. So in the mid 19th century, we had the Revolution of 1848, which affected much of Europe. And in France, it involved the overthrow of the kingdom and the establishment of the Second Republic. And only a year later, France issued its first postage stamps. Now, there may have been French people who were collecting stamps by that time, since they had been around since 1840. But the first record of a stamp market is that of 1860. And I have different sources, one that says that it was in the Palais Royal, and other says that it was in the Tuileries Gardens. So, but in that same general area. This shows other places where the market was located in the 19th century. And part of the reason for moving was occasionally, as people gathered to enjoy stamps and buy and trade, there were some sinister elements that from the populace that became involved with that. And so they moved out of safety. Ultimately, there was a plot of land just off the Champs-Élysées, known as the Carré Marigny, or the Marigny Square. And from the late 1880s on to the present, that has been the location of the Paris Marché du Timbres, or outdoor stamp market. The image here, this is a piece of old paper glued to a postcard. And this is an image that we'll see later, because it was reproduced in the 1940s for a stamp exhibition. But this is represents the open air market. It looks like everybody's very young, or young and very young. And so this was supposedly the beginning of it in 1860. Not much of a record from that time. But in 1873, there was quite a spread about trading stamps in the newspaper L'Illustration. This is a copy of the newspaper that I was able to obtain from December 20th, 1873. And there's this wonderful illustration of young people trading stamps. The accompanying article is wonderfully detailed, although clearly it was written by somebody who didn't really understand collecting stamps. So there's some comments in there that the writer finds this occasionally rather puzzling for that people are doing. Whoops. Let me also drop back. The Marigny Square, the general area where the open air stamp market developed, had been quite a center of activity for many years before the 1880s. And this is a picture of Marigny Square in 1848. We have a puppet theater at the far left, all kinds of entertainment, some sort of Ferris wheel perhaps on the far right, but it was quite a gathering place. Jumping ahead to the early 1900s, this was a time when a lot of photographic postcards were produced, and I try to collect these postally used, which is a little more challenging than purchasing or finding unused ones. There are also modern reprints, and we'll look at some of those later on in the talk. But the blue star on the map at left shows where the Marché de Timbres or Bourse de Timbres was located or is located. And in the Marigny Square, there is also a very grand theater. And this is a place where one of my other philatelic interests, Josephine Baker, performed operetta at the Marigny Theater in the 1930s. So I put a year of 1905 on these cards, which is approximate. The earliest postmarked one I have is 1906. Okay, so here we are, the bourse of the postage stamp bourse, and people very formally dressed there and here's the puppet theater to the left, with stamps out in the open, buying, selling, trading, quite a busy place. And this was a time when a lot of great picture postcards of this area were produced. So people obviously, as they should, they dressed formally in order to engage in philately, and it was not a man's hobby exclusively either. Women, as you can see, and I don't know what that guy thinks he's doing looking over their shoulders. Maybe he's going to try to cheat them out of some stamps, but here they are off to the side of the main market area. And I love this postcard. I don't have a used copy of it, but it is the stamp market in the rain. And as it says down in the caption, les intrépides, the intrepids. And there they are trying to conduct their philatelic business in the rain. Now, these cards, other than being mailed and collected, this is an example where an enterprising dealer printed on the back side of the postcard an advertisement for his business. And on it, he has produced in the correct color a pair of the 5 centime Alsace-Lorraine provisional stamps of 1870. So quite an interesting way of using these postcards. And then there are other things that I came across that were not really postal. This is an insert in probably a bag of coffee or a bar of chocolate. This is on the left is the reverse side of this. It's a small card, and with a rather jaundiced view of our hobby, where it says to the left, a job, in the middle, with the wealthy man in front of the Paris bourse, a dream that you're going to get rich with it, and then to the right, the reality of it, where you have the pauper with his. So this is, I think, is a very slap in the face of philately, that this is what we're destined to with our hobby. And I've come across other odd things. This is a little clipping out of newspaper quality paper, and from 1912, but the caption below, it looks, one child is saying to the other, "It seems as though a collection sold for 75,000 francs." And the other one says, "No wonder. It contained stamps of the 15th and 16th centuries." So I don't know who writes this stuff, but I found it very amusing and engaging. To the right is a home photograph of, and I'm not sure which one is Papa, but that's the inscription on the back of the photo. And so here we see chairs that are straight back chairs that were used to display the philatelic wares in the area, just as this was 1937, just as they were in my earlier postcards. And other postcards, this is the one on to the left is the front of the one shown in the lower right. Paris Open Air Stamp Bourse 1928. And the back of the card is a mailed example with the special postmark for the 1930 International Air Post Exposition in Paris. Now, this beguiling woman here, who you can tell that, I mean, she must have been attracting people right and left. But this is from another newspaper. It's a day or a weekly newspaper for young people. And most of the articles in the copy that I have are about various sports, but there was a full page dedicated to the Marché au Timbres. And they, again, I think this is so discouraging pictorially. The below the fold, it is this, and it's really wonderful. Although in the center, you can see this person is sitting there rather grimly, but you have young people and older people, and again, the straight back chairs with stamp offerings propped on them, and some tables. Well, during the occupation there and the Vichy government, there was a philatelic exposition in Paris, and there were two postcards that were produced. The one at the upper left is the one, although it has a different caption from the clipping that I showed at the very beginning, is basically what it might have been like in 1860, at the beginning of the open air market. And then in the lower right, we have an artist's rendition of what it was in 1941. And then to the left of that is there were Cinderellas that were produced with that same image. Now, after the war, things look a little bit different, but the notable thing here is the sign that where the seller is selling stamps with the picture of Marshal Pétain, who was on the two postcards in the previous one. He was the collaborationist leader of the French Vichy government that collaborated with the Germans during the occupation. And so there were huge number of definitive stamps issued with Pétain's image on them. After the liberation, these were demonetized. So they all of a sudden had no postal validity. And so here's a guy who's hawking this basically, worthless paper in 1945, right after the liberation of Paris. And dealers got creative. This is a press photo, and the inset in the upper right is the paper with that explains what it is. This is for a New York bureau of some news service that is not specifically mentioned in the purple writing, but it does say that that the man built this himself, and that he sells stamps out of it at the open air market. Let me just stop a minute here. So, Don, you mentioned France International, and we're very fortunate to have the proprietor of France International, Pierre Wertheimer, here. And Pierre, do you have a question that you want to ask now?
You'll need to unmute, Pierre. Well,
There.
first of all, I used to be the proprietor of France International, and before it was sold to Mike Scheffler in
Oh,
2001.
okay.
What I raised my hand just to mention on the previous slide, and Mark Tricard also quote on it. The sign says, here we buy back the pétain stamps. So it's not on rachète les pétins. So it doesn't say we sell the pétain stamps. It says we buy back the pétain stamps,
Oh, okay. Well,
which
thank you
is
very
which is
much for mentioning that. That's important.
which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
So thank you for stop taking
Sure.
my. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate
Oh,
you
sure.
asking that. Yeah. Whoops, going the wrong way. So in 1960, this was a centennial of the stamp bourse. And the only thing I have found, which is really quite fortuitous, was this US cachet cover from the Interpex stamp show, international show in New York in 1860, that again has the image of the 1860 image of the young people in the at the origin of the stamp market, and then the caption that 100 years of stamp collecting. In 1860, stamp collecting really came into its own with the opening of the first open air stamp bourse in the Tuileries in Paris. Now, just a few years later, this is basically what the bourse looked like. You know, very crowded, lots of stalls. There are even canopies, and people wandering through it. And you never know. You might even see a familiar face in a light trench coat. And this is Cary Grant, as you might recognize, American actor. Scenes from the 1963 movie Charade, much of which was filmed on site in Paris, and including the scenes in the stamp bourse. The previous one, that is the back of James Coburn, who is also one of the stars of the movie. And here we see the mystery at the beginning of the movie is, what are these people killing each other over? And ultimately, for those of you not seen the movie, I'll ruin the plot for you. It was over rare postage stamps. And the lower left, that was the first scene in the movie that showed the envelope with the 3 stamps on it. And then here we see a gentleman holding the envelope, and you can barely see the faint images of stamps. But then in the lower right image, somebody has torn the corner off of the envelope, and James Coburn is about to get shot because the stamps are missing. So Audrey Hepburn and her friend's son, they go to a stamp dealer nearby, and because he has actually traded with the young man this little scrap of paper with 3 stamps on it for a big bag of stamps. And they realize that there's something going on here, and so they go to visit the distinguished dealer, and he says, I was wondering when you were going to arrive. He's expecting them, and he's holding the scrap of paper with the stamps in a pair of tongs, and this is it. And so what we see is a Swedish stamp, a Hawaiian missionary stamp, and a Moldavian bull stamp. Now, these are none of these are all fictitious, these examples here. The Swedish 4-skilling stamp was originally printed in blue, so this is made to appear to be a color error. The Hawaiian missionaries are rare in of themselves, but there was no 3-cent stamp. There was, however, a 2-cent stamp. And the Moldavian stamp, there is not an 82 para denomination. There is an 81 para denomination. So if it had been the real thing, these would have been the real stamps. The 3-skilling Banco, the famous, unique Swedish color error, the 2-cent Hawaiian missionary, and the 81 para Moldavian stamp. So anyway, then we find out what people are killing each other over, and I'm sure this is not the only time that this has happened. Charade is one of 2 stamp-related movies of which I'm aware. The other one is called 9 Queens. It is an Argentinian movie, and again, it's about a sheet of rare stamps. Not so much killing, though. Well, we leave the 60s and go to the 70s, and again, the fabled chairs are there, showing the wares of dealers. And over on the right, you see the gentleman is wearing bell-bottom trousers, and the woman is wearing clogs. Yes, Pierre.
Well, I'm going to make one observation to start with. There are 2 areas in the stamp market. The area that is shown now with shares and people hanging around shares is called les pieds humides, which are can be translated as the wet feet, because people would get their feet wet if it was raining. The other area that you showed just before in the 1960s is the area where the established stamp dealers are. To go back to the movie Charade, there are a few anecdotes, but one is I've been told that the dealers that were operating in 1963 when the movie was made, each got 500 francs for the afternoon while the movie was being filmed. And 500 francs was about $100, which in 1960 is much more than they would have hoped to earn in an afternoon. So that is interesting.
Yes.
And there are, I often showed the orders that, in fact, I think the clips that can be found on YouTube are even more interesting about the movie Charade, because it's really amazing. But beside the errors that you showed on the 3 stamps, there are other mistakes that are shown that happened during the filming of the movie. One is that the stall of the dealer that we saw later on is being shown as closed, but that doesn't exist. You couldn't close your stall. You had to dismantle it completely in order to go back home. So that's one thing that was very interesting.
Yeah.
And there are other things that I could point out. And the main thing in terms of the movie is that a fortune worth of stamps were opposed to a cover. And, everybody knows here that to save the value of mint stamps, you would not put them on a cover. And that's the other major mistake in the movie. Thank you, Tom.
Yes. Then, the stalls became a little better developed, a little more protective. And many years ago, I was at the Musée de la Poste in Paris, and they actually had a reconstructed stall on exhibit in the Postal Museum. Down below on the lower left, this is another example of one of these cards being used as an advertising handout or mailing. And then I'm not sure about the time of this, but I found the parking meters behind the gentleman on the right rather amusing. So but it typically is, in modern years, it's only Thursday through Sunday. And so maybe this is that they give up the parking income so that the collectors can settle in. Now, in 1988, there was an attempt, which I think was really quite successful, by Timbres magazine and the publishers of that, to create a buzz about the bourse there in the Marigny area. And so the 4 days of Marigny became an annual celebration that focused on the outdoor market in the Marigny Square area. This is a copy of the first issue of Timbres that in which this was rolled out. And in the upper left is an image of a label that the company that they produced, and in the lower left is a cutout that you could, if you put one of these labels on this form, and if you answered those questions and provided your contact information, then you were put into a drawing, and the winning the prizes were stamps, and the little yellow box in the lower center explained what you got if you got the first, second, or third drawing. So this was an attempt at really kind of boosting the interest, and for some reason I am not. Oh, there. Okay. Here's an example of the printed sheet of these labels, and also advertising the magazine. And the cover is one that has the special Marché au Timbres Marigny cancel for May 1988, which is when this was started. The stamp is interesting because it was the stamp that had been issued not long before that, addressing the franc euro conversion that was going to be coming up in a few years. And so the lower right, though, this is an example of a modern reprint of one of the 1905 cards, and again with that euro denominated stamp, and on its first day of issue in April of 1988. These are a few examples related to the 4 days of Marigny, and 3 different cancellations. The most common one is the circular one that we see on the cachet envelope below. celebrating the centennial of the Eiffel Tower, but the cachet image with the Eiffel Tower in the background shows the stamp market in the foreground. The other two, I've only seen a few examples, one from 1997, one from 1991, but typically throughout the years, the circular cancel has been the most common one. And souvenir blocks, these do not have any postal usage, but have been produced showing aspects of the stamp market. And the Timbroscopy magazine issues a design every year, both perforated and imperforate. And this is the only one, the one with Mickey and Minnie, that refers to the stamp market. Then in 2010, the 150th anniversary of the open air stamp market was celebrated. This is the outside of a beautifully printed folder, the inside of which contained a souvenir sheet and proof impressions of 5 stamps featuring famous philatelists. If you look at the selvage around these stamp images, you see all kinds of wonderful 19th century engraved images of, open air stamp market. Notably, one of the 5 notable philatelists is Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the upper left. And not only notable for being included in this recognition, but also there were special cachet envelopes shown at left that were issued for each of the 5 philatelists in that series. But the maximum cards and the cachet at above clearly show an image of Roosevelt, which rather surprised me that it would not be one of the French philatelists in the group. But so that was again the 150th anniversary of the stamp market. This was the last time that I was there, which was in 2015, and it was not really the bustling, wonderful place that I remembered from about 15 years before that. But again, it's open on on Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And here are pictures. The dealer above is Gerald Prince, who is he has this enormous van with these tubs full of postal history. He also has a storefront in Paris in the Passage de Panorama, and he also sells at the big international shows. But I was very grateful that he had quite a quantity of modern covers for sale. And the lower picture is my stamp buddy and also UT faculty retiree Gerald Schrodel from the anthropology department, and myself while we were picking through Prince's buckets of modern French covers. And that is the end of my time travelogue. And I did want to kind of end it with a little additional mention of the movie Charade. That this was actually in the same year, Peter Stone wrote the book and then wrote the screenplay for the movie. And of course, the U.S. has also recognized Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant on postage stamps.